Man, so the very first thing I dove into was image generation models. So this was when open source diffusion models were first hitting the scene. And that was kind of the first thing that really got me going. Because in my side time, my personal time, I also love doing art and love painting. There's just too many options. Like no one used to spend more than an hour at Blockbuster ever. But yet, how many hours would we waste trying to find a show everybody can agree with on Netflix or, on a Roku to find what we'll watch tonight? I can't lie. Right now in the software field, there's engineers out there that are able to build enterprise level software with AI 100%. Automation has never made things faster. It's just made things more reliable and removed the need for human involvement.
The following is a conversation with Ryan Booth. Over 20 years in enterprise networking and operations, he's led from the trenches across service providers, government, healthcare, and finance. He's built hands-on training platforms like After Cloud Labs, moved deeply into DevOps and automation, and now he's applying machine learning and AI to everyday infrastructure work. This is the AIMUG Builders Podcast. If you find it valuable, please subscribe and join our meetup and Discord. The links are in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Ryan Booth. Ryan, thank you for coming onto the show. And
absolutely.
What's interesting is that at the meetups, I remember you telling me that you fly in for the meetup every month, and you're flying in from Amarillo. So how's that?
It's not bad. It's from the top of Texas, so it's only 2-3 hours from the airport to get there. Or if I ever want to drive it, I could do a long 10-hour drive or so. So it's not too bad, but it's great to kind of get out of my area, get out of the world that I live in here, get down to Austin where a lot of people are doing a lot of cool stuff. So it's fun meeting up with everybody and meeting new people.
Well, yeah. So how did you even find AIMUG?
It really came through Colin, our founder. When I started getting into social media in my career about 15 years ago, he was pretty prominent in social media. We both worked in the network infrastructure, cloud infrastructure realm. And so we kind of knew each other. We didn't talk to each other for quite a while. And then we both seemed to jump into the AI stuff, and we kind of caught up with each other on LinkedIn. And then he was like, hey, come check out my group. And I did. And it was amazing. And I haven't looked back. So yeah, kind of went like that.
Cool. Well, could you tell me more about your background? Like, how did you get
Yeah,
to Amarillo? Were you there all your life?
sure. Both me and my wife were born and raised here in Amarillo. We grew up here, graduated high school here, started college here, and then I couldn't get my IT career going in any way, shape, or form in a smaller town like this, kind of like most people face in small towns. And so I needed to finish up school. I needed to get a strong foundation for my career. So we left and we went to Oregon. At the time, I was trying to get into cybersecurity and security infrastructure, which I later deviated from, but finished up my degree, built a strong career there, mostly focused on network and data center infrastructure. I did work for service providers up there doing content delivery network type stuff. But my primary focus was always network infrastructure. And then fast forward a few years into 2012 or so, and we had kids. We had our first daughter and we had our second one on the way. And the grandparents were really looking at us like, you got to get these kids back home so we can see them. And so we decided to shift back home, move back to Amarillo, a little bit slower pace, a little bit out of the community or a little bit outside of town, make things a little nice, a little slower for us. And from there, it was just basically build my career. And did a couple jobs where I did some network data center redesigns, rebuilds, jumped into network automation, which was really the DevOps for infrastructure. And it really picked up when cloud was coming into play because a lot of DevOps tools were really getting built for cloud, and it kind of naturally fit into what we were doing. And that was really what my intro to software development was starting to learn how to do automation for network infrastructure. Fast forward a couple of years, and I got lucky and landed a job with a strongly VC-backed startup out of the Bay Area that did just that: network automation and push-button network infrastructure tools. And so I spent the better part of 10 years getting a really strong set of chops of software development, taught out of some of the best software engineers in the Bay Area. Built up a number of tools, some cloud-based tools that scaled up with users as we grew. And then after we got acquired and I started migrating more into the company I worked for, Juniper Networks, AI took off, and I figured out that I absolutely loved working with it. It tied in perfectly with the automation solutions and tools that I used. It was just a matter of learning how to use it and get everything put in place with it. And honestly, since then, that's what I've been doing is just really figuring out how to utilize it the best to be either build infrastructure or build workflows that people can rely on.
And that's the time that you got introduced to LangChain land graph.
Man, so the very first thing I dove into was image generation models. So this was when open source diffusion models were first hitting the scene. And that was kind of the first thing that really got me going. Because in my side time, my personal time, I also love doing art and love painting. So, that kind of tied the two together for me and allowed me to dig into the advanced algorithms and stuff like that had a lot of abstraction that I couldn't get before. So it started there. And then at the end of that year, when I was right about to settle down for Christmas vacation, that's when ChatGTP hit. And that's when we really got exposed to, I think it was GPT-2 at the time, and what a transformer model could really do. And I started plugging that into a couple of like workflows I would do with network automation. And I really saw the power with that. So I started pushing, and I started working with those inside our organization that was doing the same things. A little after that is when RAG hit the scene. So that was getting into 2024 at the time. And a number of us had already been really pushing down the RAG pipe or the RAG route to do vector searches. Vectorized databases had been around for a little bit longer before the term RAG had come around. And so there had already been a number of companies and startups built up around it. And so I did RAG for about a year within the organization. But as teams got more and more ramped up with RAG, I was needed less and less to help them understand stuff. And as RAG solutions got better, it became easier. And so I shifted my focus over to software development, chasing that proverbial that proverbial solution none of us have ever been able to get, which is developing software through automation without humans building it. And so that's kind of what I've been digging into is how can I build software? How can I build it reliable? How can I get software out of these solutions that I would expect out of the teams that I run, building platforms? And so I've been about a year and a half now, really pushing down that route. I've had 6 products now kind of go through a complete phase 1 proof of concept, some a little bit further, some into production and actual product. And it's just been a lot of exploring, a lot of seeing how far we can go. There's, been a ton of advancements over the past year and a half on what we do for agentic style development. And so it's keeping up.
So in the episode prior, I spoke with Sal, and what was interesting is this concept of context engineering. So I think I'll give a brief overview right now for anyone who's not familiar. So in the large language model space, you have foundational models, and these are trained with large compute clusters, and they're very expensive to train. And these are then tuned to specific applications, and they typically go through a flow of, at first, it was prompt engineering, trying to get the correct prompts with maybe examples and get that tuned to the specific application. The next was providing more specific context, and so this is retrieval augmented generation, where you use semantic search with the vector database, and the data has been vectorized, inserted into the database. And the idea is that your prompt will fetch related context from that database It'll be concatenated to the current prompt, and the LLM would be able to produce a more specific result. With the final and most expensive technique being fine tuning, using parameter efficient fine tuning on the specific application. So with Sal, the idea here is that we had context engineering that has become more important. And I believe his opinion was that it had superseded prompt engineering, that the idea of one-shotting is no more. So you're going to always be iterating, having agents work and gather new context for specific segmented subtasks. And I was wondering, with how things are going as far as context engineering and how those agents use the Model Context Protocol, MCP, that this idea of RAG, at least the term RAG, has been removed, and that you have instead just like par for the course. Like it's lost its novelty in a way.
Yeah, I think eventually we could get there. I do subscribe to the possibility that models will eat everything. I think it'll just be a matter of time, and if transformer models can't do it, we'll figure out other models that will. But there's more to RAG than just, well, it is context control. It absolutely is context control. But it goes beyond just what context is available to the agent for use. Um, when you look at enterprise level RAG needs, you start talking about sensitive data. Um, does the RAG pipeline that is requesting, or the user that is asking for this information, do they have authorization? Do they have access to that data? There's a lot of security concerns there. Same thing with like PPI, personal private information. So HIPAA, government, federal, any type of high sensitivity type information. You got to be able to filter that out. You don't want that type of information leaking out in prompts if it's being attached through a database through RAG, or responses, or straight up, you just don't want it to get leaked out another vector, attack vector for a company. So I feel there's still a lot of strong needs for RAG there. The underlying concept of what RAG does, of controlling what context gets dumped into the agents to do their heavy lifting, I think that's going to stay, relevant. How it's done will probably change a lot, but yeah, I think we still need all of those enterprise and those real world mature solutions built around this stuff that we just haven't got there yet, or very few have.
Yes, I think the point I don't think I articulated it as well as I wanted. I think what I was thinking is that with the sort of formalization that agents are always going to require tooling, templates, and context, the previous term of RAG is probably what's going to go away. And so you have, it's sort of the default, right? So the idea that you're going to rely solely on prompts, that this is going to be a chatbot, because I think really with agents, the mental model has changed. I think that when ChatGPT 2 came out and when Claude came out, I think people were looking at it as a chatbot. And so the idea here was the chat, the prompt. That's what mattered, right? And I think that what has happened is, as agents are no longer directly engaging in interaction with the user, we have abstracted away the idea of the prompt a little bit. And we're looking at more at instruction, general instruction, and context. And so this specific RAG terminology is probably on the way out, and it's just the default concept now.
Okay. Yeah. I understand what you're saying there. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'll go further down um, into the weeds where very few people actually think, hey, we're building a RAG. It's kind of like saying we're building a database. Woohoo! You know, I think it will get to that point where it's just natively built into what we do and into the when we do search, when we do context control, it's just naturally built in that way. Terms and how it's all done. I think agentic RAG, really drives that workflow better. It really defines it a lot stronger than what we used to do with scripting and stuff.
A2A, what is
Yeah.
it? I'm sure you can tell me a lot about it.
Yeah, A2A has kind of been one of those protocols that landed. It had a little bit of press from Google, but I still just don't hear a lot of people talking about this or even talking about the needs. So essentially, A2A is the attempt to allow agents to communicate and to discover services and other agents to be able to complete work for you on your end. So some really simple examples would be if you have an agent that could go out and search all the different sites that supported A2A for clothes or for anything you would be buying off Amazon, and you're trying to find better deals. That's kind of what your company does is you source products at the best price and then you redistribute them or whatever. Things like that. So an agent can go out and find the products and actually make the purchase for you on your behalf, or at least give you a notification. Hey, we're buying this. Do you accept the purchase? Yes. And it becomes a binding contract between the two agents to where you can associate delivered work and currency to that transaction. So that then allows you to transact or transfer money between parties. Um, and that's what it opens up. Sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. So the transaction and the purchasing part is actually a newer part of A2A called AP2, which is for purchasing. And so that's where I got a little bit ahead of myself. So with A2A, it's a lot like the one use case that everybody seems to gravitate towards, or at least pick up on, is the notion of your business, your personal brand, whatever it is. When you jump on a chat bot and you ask about that, are you getting the information back you want? So it used to be like, hey, if you Google your company's name, how far up on the list are you? Is it even on the front page? Now it's basically like if someone asks the chat bot about your services in your area, is your name coming up in the response? And that's kind of the starting point. That's the point that kind of hooks everybody in, I feel, and people start understanding. Okay, if people are looking for services, so like if you're an insurance agent, if people are looking for insurance services and they're asking a chat bot, what's the best agent in Austin, Texas? Where does my name end up on that list? And that's where A2A helps. A2A helps share your catalog with your customers or potential customers. So anybody can very quickly use a chatbot to navigate all of your catalog, all of your products, and have a way to possibly purchase them with AP2. But it goes further than that. So if you're thinking about how customers get engaged and find you as a company, you start looking into, okay, what's the scenarios where they're going to be like, ooh, I need to go to this company or I need to find this. And what we're finding is instead of Google searching to find companies, everybody's jumping straight into like ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or whatever you use for your generalized chatbot. And they start there with searching. So, hey, I need to try to solve this problem. Or they take a screenshot of their computer and it's like, this is broken. How do I fix it? Those chatbots can go beyond just finding catalogs of your product. They can find your blog post. They can find your CMS data around content creation. They can find the resources they need that help them. And then that can be a gateway into, possibly an upsell or providing better user experience for them with your documentation without having to spend a lot of effort with a massive RAG on the back end to do it. Or they can combine together at a later date. So that was a lot of words Hope all of that made sense.
Yeah, so I think we could take it step by step. And the the thing is, I don't quite understand why. So A2A is built as agent interacting with other agents, right? So why, for example, finding your content, wouldn't that simply be a an internet search and looking at the markdown, perhaps that comes out, or the HTML more accurately, that results from that search? Like why, what's the other agent that it's speaking to?
Yeah. So what I think you're hitting at here, and cut me off if I'm wrong, is really what why are we using AI to do this? Why? What's the why here? And if you take a step back and you look at this, the internet, when the internet hit, everybody on earth who had access to the internet basically got access to the world's knowledge all at once. You just got to be able to find it, and you got to know how to use it. And that was what we were introduced to with the internet. What AI is introducing to is not just the world's knowledge at your fingertips, but the contextual knowledge and experience and expertise to know what to do with that information. And so when we're talking in a scenario like this, when in the past a Google search will return a document if you're trying to troubleshoot something or you're trying to fix something, whatever, um, it'll return a document that should give you the answer to that, but that's it. A chat bot is going to be like, hey, I found this document out there. It looks like what you need to do is step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I'm also seeing over here, it contextualizes it and it helps you. So instead of just dumping a bunch of information on our users like we have been all the way up until now it's time to start massaging that data to work and conversate with the user. And that's what AI brings to the table. If something else can do it better, then there's no reason for AI to do it.
Okay, so let me imagine this. So I have, let's say, a client AI. I'm using that on my own desktop or smartphone, and I am searching for a a roofer in Austin, Texas. And I don't know anything about my roof. I don't know what makes a better roof. I don't know what is expensive. I don't know what's cheap. I don't know the reputations of anyone involved. Is the concept that my agent will go look for, let's say, local roofing agents or maybe a national roofing agent and converse with that agent to try to determine precisely the roofing company that would meet my needs?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So you would make the request. Your chat assistant would pick up the A2A data that's being requested and asked for. It'll do a search. Right now, it's a little unclear to me exactly how it goes out and search or what all the available places are to search, or if it just does a full internet search. So I will have to get that detail back or look into it a little more. But essentially, you find agent cards, and agent cards is basically like your LinkedIn profile. Hey, here's what this dude can do. Here's what this agent can provide. Or roofing companies. Here are the top 15 roofing companies by feedback on Yelp or whatever in the area that support A2A. And so when we find one or the agent says, hey, here's the 15 companies that we're looking at, it can then dig in deeper to each one of them. What's their product catalog? What's their process? What type of shingles do they use? Any type of services that you would put on your website, or, if you expose a calendar to where people can book their own times for people or own days for people to show up and replace the roof. Things like that can all then be turned around and exposed here through an API. And so instead of the chat bot just saying, hey, here's the top 15 companies, pick which one you like, they all have these different ratings. It'd be like, here's the 15 companies, but it looks like Bob's Roofing can have you high quality shingles roofed by next week. If you need something tomorrow, David's David's Cheap Shingles can be out there tomorrow to do your roofing at this price.
Hmm.
David's Quick also supports payment. Would you like to go ahead and schedule and pay it? And you do it.
Okay.
That's the
So,
end goal, but there's still a
right.
number of steps to get there.
Okay. So I can imagine a future in which maybe, well, it looks like the companies are perhaps up to themselves to implement A2A and provide it for anyone else who
Yes.
has a client. So there's not a consumer level vendor, or even I would say a business level vendor that provides this as a service. One could imagine that you have an application, and instead of having a whole bunch of A2A agents, the company simply adds individual services to their catalog, and you speak to one dedicated agent that is perhaps fine-tuned on solving that specific problem.
Yeah, I do. I think there's use cases there. It is an area that I'm kind of exploring myself with one of the projects. I'm kind of exploring how A2A would fit in and look inside of a marketplace style application or infrastructure. And it really is the notion. And this is what I gave a demo on that you spoke about last month was, um, people can bring their own models, they can bring their own tooling. So if you have a really nailed down process to build, I don't know, any type of application with, say, Claude Code or an agent workflow, if you bring it into this application as a workflow that any user can pay for to use, and then it gets ran in the compute wherever, and then the user requests to purchase the use of that workflow. So it'd be like a AWS marketplace or anything like that, where you could attach tools to your cloud infrastructure. But on top of that, and with A2A built in, you have the possibility of allowing transactions to happen directly between users and vendors without having to go through the service provider like AWS or anything like that. Now we are seeing to kind of hit on some of your questions. Every day there's new vendors that seem to get added to the list supporting A2A and AP2 for purchasing. So it has a decent amount of businesses behind it, and it seems like it'll have a head of steam.
Hmm. Interesting. Just seeing that how these sort of things occur in the past, and usually there's a sort of consolidator that comes around later and makes everything very easy. To me, for example, going through and setting it up in the sort of AWS marketplace is still more of a developer ecosystem and not necessarily a consumer level or small business level environment.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
yeah.
we definitely would be there. And you're right. This is going to grow with complexity, and A2A might not be the end all beat all solution here, or maybe there's an A2A version two. I don't know. Because there's still a number of things that have to be worked out. You can't just have payments happening automatically anymore, but I think, or not anymore, you still can't. You've never been able to just have payments be auto approved and go without a human approval. But that just could be a limitation to protect us right now. But yes, I think as it grows, because you got to start looking at um, before, when we're presenting our products, when we're presenting our solutions, we're presenting our brand to our customers, we basically build the collateral, and we hope that they review it and go through it the way we want them to, the way we want it to resonate with them. We tell them the specific stories that we think will make it click for them, and that's all part of marketing. And there's a lot of professionals out there that are really really good at this. Um, I think we got to relook at how we're approaching serving this up to our customers, because before it was just through APIs or websites or portals or whatever to get that information. They're not going to go there anymore. And they're probably not even going to buy your product at some point in time unless you have the ability to do all these services through a chatbot. Now, of course, that can easily be not true in the future, but who knows? I do think we need to start looking at that because people will be able to start taking a competitive advantage if they understand how to serve this content through AI to their customers.
Yes. And it also will affect a lot of branding, um, because we're not going to have the ability to we're not going to have the ability to work on emotion like we did beforehand if things are occurring through A2A, through LLMs. We're not going to have the ability to necessarily have a non-quantified reputation. So branding is very much about what you're associated with. It's not an explicit numerical value. You can have ratings, but that's not exactly the same as your brand. So yes, I think have you ever seen or do you remember the old 1-800 contacts commercial
Oh yeah.
with my brand? Yes. So I think A2A is going to be maybe a brand destroyer unless marketers can figure out a new way of preserving that sort of brand client relationship, brand customer relationship. So
Don't want to disagree with you, but I think I do. Like I don't know, and I'd love to have this discussion with others further. So if anybody out there has a deeper opinion on this, I'd love to hear it. I think we're going to have to learn to do marketing differently in terms of, how we brand, how we push it out. Like I said, we got to influence the AI to speak on our behalf. We don't have to influence the collateral to speak on our behalf. And so, how we build collateral, yes, you do have the collateral that people are going to want to look at. People are going to want to look at spec sheets. They're going to want to look at flyers with all the benefits, all that stuff, all the features. Um, but then agents, they need to cut out all of that. But they need to understand how to present to the user. They need to understand the stories that make sense for the users. And if you don't create those for the AI to use, the AI will make them up themselves.
yeah,
So I think we're going to have to relearn how to do that, maybe. Um, but I do think there's still emotion involved there. I just don't think we know how to use it yet, or I could be wrong.
well, I mean, that's a very interesting point, but let's consider this. Right now, we have ads that are served all over the place, YouTube, Facebook, on Google, and you have these ads bidded on by various companies. And so you have cost per click, and there's essentially a marketplace for your attention. This could also be extended into the agent space. You could have the agent advocate for a particular brand based upon what it knows about you, and then also the payment by the brand. So you can move that marketplace to the agent.
Interesting. Yeah. And then that's a matter. So, but that would be shifting. And I'm trying to think through what you just said because you got my wheel spinning now. Um, because then that kind of shifts that. Well, it's always been the control of the agents on what they present to the users. It's just influenced by the A2A data coming in. So if the agents, yeah, and those are probably getting into some more advanced workflows too, where the agents can be instructed to do more thorough research. Maybe it's like what are the top 5 products in our line and in other companies. I don't know. There's a lot to discuss with this one. It's so new. There's so much it can possibly do, and it's just a matter of how's it going to go.
Yeah, so to look at it a different way, I think that companies are going to eventually see this as maybe if the agent is not advocating for them, it becomes a situation where they are essentially selling on a platform. They're selling, let's say, on Amazon, and they're just competing on price and distribution, and it would be a race to the bottom for them. And if someone were to come out with a marketplace where they could somehow get the agent to not be so impartial and instead be their personal sales agent. I think that's perhaps a solution that more and more brands would be interested in supporting rather than something that was generic and open source.
You might be hitting on something there. Because opinionated, you brought up the word opinionated, and that kind of made it click for me. The value of an opinionated solution is that you don't have to make as strong of a choice or as risky of a choice. The vendor or the product does all the risky decision making, best practice following, all of those things, so the user can be reassured that what they're getting is good. So that would be interesting, because if your sales for a lot of product, especially stuff in bulk, like you mentioned, it's a race to the bottom because no one cares. I need to find part number 4572763 and I need 14 of them next week. There's nothing to that. But for products where you're selling more than just the products, or you're selling, where am I getting at with this?
You can be selling prestige, for example. How do you
Exactly.
how do you quantify prestige, right?
And I think so. I think you tailor the experience to the user and their search assistant. And so people don't, okay, where I was going is think I instantly, when you said that, it sent me back to this issue we face now with all these social platforms, for streaming services or entertainment. There's just too many options. Like, no one used to spend more than an hour at Blockbuster ever. But yet, how many hours would we waste trying to find a show everybody can agree with on Netflix or, on a Roku to find what we'll watch tonight? There's too many damn options. And I think that's where opinionated processes and opinionated applications shine, because those that are like, oh my God, just give me something, make it work. I hope it matches my persona. Great. And go with it. That's where those values stand up, because people will pay for that. People will pay for, you know what, I don't have time to think about this right now, or this is not my area of expertise. It's way too critical for me to have to try to figure this out. I'm just going to pay someone right now and do it. We do that all the time. And I think that's a perfect example here too, where you can stand out.
I think
With
it's going to absolutely go in two different directions. You're going to have one direction is going to be the Walmartization of everyday life, the Walmartization of information, and you'll get something that's similar to Netflix, which is you're going to get movies and suggestions that are least common denominator. It's going to be AI slop, essentially, just a little bit above what we currently have. And then I think you're going to have a separate case in which it's going to be taste. We're going to have to teach taste to the models, and instead of Netflix, it'll be Criterion Collection.
Yeah. And then, a lot of them already are right now. A lot of the ML models we've been using on Netflix, social media platforms. I mean, that's what TikTok's famous for, is their algorithms. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of that, a lot of profiling for ourselves. But I also think, this is one of those, like, so I mentioned art. I paint. I love painting. I painted my whole life. I love the art community. I even attempted to build a artist dashboard app over the past year to help artists on social media present their stuff. Artists have a massive backlash against AI right now for very obvious reasons. People who do online art or all across the field, they're just completely drying up their marketplace because AI art's taking it over. And especially like marketing people or creators in the professional space, they're losing a ton of business right now because people are able to just go generate good enough slop, like you said. With A2A, we're introducing a possibility to where if you have a personal brand and you have a personal persona, so like for an artist, their portfolio or their style of painting, if you can build a model or you can build something that does it in your style very well, and generates those images or helps an artist paint in that style, whatever an agent can help someone do. And then you license it and then charge for it through A2A and AP2. You got a transactional base. So then you as an artist, you can share your work. You can share your models out on social media or Hugging Face, where people use a lot of open source models now, or wherever the marketplace might be. And then people can use your art, have your approval to use your likeness in their stuff, and they pay for the generation of that content, however much you license. A2A and these technologies, I think, are opening up this door for new ways of doing old things that are getting destroyed by AI. And I think that's a good example of one.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see how that shakes out. I think that there's going to be some of that. I think you're going to have more of a concentration on relationships between an artist and their fan, and perhaps even a switch in the art community from doing things behind closed doors to doing things live. So you might get more painting out in the open, or get more performance art as a result.
And you're right there. That is already starting to happen. The trend in like YouTube shorts or TikTok videos in the art community is to record yourself painting or record yourself going through a process. And the outcome isn't the end deliverable. The content of the recording, the process becomes the material for the artist. And a lot of them are finding some very creative ways to do this, to make a painting, which is very usually not very interactive with, make it interactive and digital and interesting. Yeah. I think there's a lot of creativity that we're going to open up when we figure out how to work with it.
All right. So before the podcast, you talked to me a little bit about warming up an LLM agent to do coding. Could you speak more about that?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a newer idea that's been kicking around in my head for a few weeks, maybe a little longer, is kind of when the seeds started getting planted. So I'll take a step back. Okay, so a lot of my software exploration or software development exploration with agents, a lot of the bottlenecks, a lot of the blockers, a lot of the problems I faced that slowed me down or full on stopped me in getting through issues, troubleshooting, bug scrubs, things like that, that the agent had difficulty doing. Um, I, I noticed that working with an agent more like a human instead of a service or a, PID file, whatever, it treat it more like a human. You interact with it more like a human. So when it's stuck, take off your engineering hat, put on your leadership hat, and help figure out how to navigate it through the workflow. And it works. I've had tremendous success with this. And a number of things that have really blocked. Applying your human to human interaction to an agent works. So the notion is like I said earlier, I've built up all these different applications over the past year while I've been exploring all these different nooks and crannies of the development world in AI. And a number of these apps have failed in different ways, and a number of them have not. And one of the areas that I picked up on is if I jump straight into a complex project, brand new repo, brand new folder, fully built PRD, and I'm talking, complete PRD down to schema design, down to function and class setups, architecture, the whole 9 yards. Usually the first 2 or 3 to 5 tasks, the agents just suck at. They have a hard time setting up. They have a hard time talking to MCPs. They have a hard time writing files. They're asking for permissions all the time. They just generally do a horrible job these first 3 to 5 tasks. And so one thing that I noticed the first thing that I noticed is, okay, I get as far as I can. And then when I'm frustrated, I'm just like, screw it. Let's stop here and let's rebuild from scratch. learn from your mistakes, build a brand new PRD, understand what you did wrong, and let's fix it and do it again. The second time around, even though it didn't necessarily do it faster, it did it better. Okay. And it was because we had that additional context of the first try. And so the second thing that I noticed just the other week, excuse me, was that at the beginning, when I'm doing a brand new, fresh project, when I'm doing all of those things, that's when it's the most vulnerable. And so when I take a massively large, complex project or PRD, and the ones I'm talking about right now, we're talking the first 5 tasks have like 35 subtasks. Okay. It gets complex quick. They don't do very good at. They struggle. And after 3 or 4 run throughs of it, I notice they get better. And so after I noticed this, it was like, okay, when we hit that resistance point, we're going to review the PRD. We're going to update it for any type of clarity or anything you screwed up with this time. And we're going to start over. And I've noticed giving it that warm up and that primer allows it to start up a lot smoother. And so it allows you to move past those first 5, first 10, first 15 tasks a lot smoother. And so that's kind of one of those things. Like I said, I have no data behind this. I have absolutely no scientific research behind it. It's just my spidey senses kicking in right now. So it's kind of my hot take for the moment.
Yeah, it makes sense. I have to provide more examples, especially in this case, it seems like a negative example to the agent, that you're going to have a better fidelity to what it is you wanted it in the first place. My question is, wouldn't this eat up the context window, providing all of this negative example when perhaps there's a more efficient way of describing what you don't want the agent to do?
Yeah. And, I think really what I'm describing, if I take a step back and look at this, is it really probably is the brute force approach. You keep doing it until you finally get it right. So yeah, there has to be better there. But I think, I don't know if there's better ways to do it, or we have to wait until we get better models. I don't know where we sit. It's probably somewhere in between, but I'm not sure.
I wonder whether or not this is the same thing with AI slop in the art community, that simply poor implementation and coding is
But
the
yeah,
equivalent. Yes.
yeah. I think that's it. I mean, I see it in the software industry too, with all of my peers and my software development buddies. Not necessarily them, but the circles I'm in, it's the same there as it is in other communities. Is they attack the trash, the garbage, the low hanging fruit that's poorly done. The high quality work is what they're really scared of, because those are the professionals who are able to do stuff a lot better. And I can't lie, right now in the software field, there's engineers out there that are able to build enterprise level software with AI 100%. Will they replace you? Man, probably not. But they're going to be able to do stuff a lot faster, probably. I take that back. I hate saying that. I don't want to say that. Not a lot faster, a lot more efficient in whatever area efficiency is for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I've noticed that the speed isn't as high as as I would think, especially if you have human in the loop to manage it. So it seems like that AI coding is limited by the speed of the management, the human in the loop management.
That's going to be true across the entire board. When I was going through all of my machine learning stuff in the early days, and we were really just starting to get a glimpse of the possible of what transformer models were doing. I was a fly on the wall with a number of really smart people having conversations around this very topic. And I don't think speed has never been solved by automation. Automation has never made things faster. It's just made things more reliable and removed the need for human involvement, but it's never speeded anything up. And even like research papers. So we can crank out some crazy research papers with deep research or with research models now. but we still have to go through the evaluation phases. We still have to go through the regulatory protections so we don't hurt people. There are all these things that still have to happen. And in the software world, writing the code is probably 30% of the entire project. And then in the art community, actually painting the actual canvas is probably 30-40% of the process. This is true everywhere. And so, yeah.
Interesting. So let's go into our lightning round. I'm going to ask you some fun questions. And so we can begin with one tiny automation, since you brought up automation, that has solved an outsized pain.
Yeah. So I'm one of those, I'm a very big stickler to keep my inbox clean. I don't like having more than 1 or 2 emails sitting in my inbox. It gives me anxiety and angst. And so managing my emails into different folders has always been critical. And so I have rules that push them all over the place. My biggest problem is especially when I get a lot of emails that go into a specific folder, I lose track of it all. And I usually have to inbox zero it and just select all delete and see what I can salvage. But within the past few months, when I've been able to attach agents to my inboxes and to my calendars and stuff, I just basically have agents scheduled to check those folders, summarize all the emails in there, and give me the title of emails that I might need to reference back. And so instead of having to dig through 40 emails from Substack this last week, I was able to get a condensed workflow that showed me everything that was discussed over the week with any insights. That one saved me a ton of time because it's so difficult right now to keep up with what's happening. That's just kind of how I'm trying to survive it.
You might actually have to send me that one, so I'll ask
Okay.
later.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So let's see, what unpopular opinion do you have regarding AI?
Unpopular opinion. Geez, there's a lot of people out there that would probably say that writing software with AI is an unpopular opinion. Automating it would be even more an unpopular opinion. Let me see. I'm going to have to stick with that one right now. I can't think of anything. But if I think of something, I'll to it.
Yeah, it's probably not necessarily an unpopular as far as ability. It's probably unpopular as far as actually using it in that manner.
I'd probably say I don't think we'll see AGI in the 21st century.
So that's a cool one. Yeah. So we don't. So it depends. What do you think AGI actually means? I mean, is it a?
My opinion, AGI is when agents or an intelligent model is able to come up with its own task and its own work and do it on its own with zero input from anybody. Right now, we have to feed the AIs what we want them to do. And they can come off of that and say, okay, now I need to do this, 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 and this, and organize and build it. But there's no AI right out there right now that says, all right, I need to go out there and I need to start trading stocks for Ryan because blah, blah, blah happened. It doesn't think logically like that. You have to start it. You have to tell it what to do. And I think that's going to be the critical part with AGI. That's going to be a lot harder for us to solve. And I think it'll probably another 100 years we're chipping away at it. But I don't know. My crystal ball is just as good as anybody else's.
Well, what about this? I like to ask everybody that I meet, what is one book or resource or talk that you have found to be helpful?
So one of the books, when I was really digging into getting into leadership at a higher level for engineering teams or highly skilled people, one of the things that I was really pushing for was trying to have a blend of both creativity, fully owning everything that you build, understanding it from a full stack standpoint, and building on creativity and technical, not just one or the other. Because I usually see in most teams, one or the other really stands out, either a very strong creativity team or a very strong technical team, neither both. I found this book. It's called No Rules Rules, Netflix and the Culture of Reinvention. And basically it's by Reed Hastings, and it's an amazing read. It's an easy read, but he basically talks about how he defined and built the Netflix culture around this. And so I thought it was a really good book.
All right, Ryan. So this is the end of the episode. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a portfolio site that is A2A supported. If you want to play around with it, it's abstractryan.ai. And I'll add those so you can put in the show notes as well. You can find me on LinkedIn under Ryan Booth. You'll find me in Canyon, Texas. You'll find me, I don't do Twitter too much anymore. You'll find me on Discord, especially the AIMUG user group forum. This place is amazing. There's a lot of great people in here, including yourself. Conversations are great. That's the place I stay the most. So yeah, that's where you can find me. If you do find me and you want to chat though, I'm always around. I'm always open. I'm always happy to hear what you have to say.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. That was Ryan Booth. If this was useful, hit subscribe and come build with us at AIMUG. Meetup.com for events and Discord for demos and code. The links for both are in the description. All resources and Ryan Booth's links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening.